Welcome to the Chester Centurion Podcast. My name's Alan Bark. I'm a business growth specialist and founder of Action Coach Chester. And today I'm joined by Nick Griffiths, Managing Director of ICE, Industrial Cooling Equipment. Founded back in 1935, ICE has grown from its food industry roots into a leading specialist in mission-critical refrigeration, particularly for the pharmaceutical sector, where temperature control is everything. Nick shares his journey from apprenticed engineer to managing director, the resilience that came through personal loss, and how he's grown ICE by 500%, building a 20-strong team and a powerful apprenticeship pipeline. We talk about staying ahead of changing refrigerative laws, embracing efficiency and innovation, and his bold next chapter, a £10 million growth plan backed by a national acquisition strategy. And of course, the lesson learned along the way. Start with the end in mind. Keep learning and make time to switch off. Let's dive in. So, Nick, welcome to the Chester Centurion Podcast.
Okay.
Listen, before we get started today, Nick, I'd love to know a little bit more about ICE. Tell us a bit about what you do and maybe how long you've been trading.
Yeah, so ICE stands for Industrial Cooling Equipment. It was actually established in 1935, so 90 years old this year. The business was started by a guy called Jack Gardner, I believe, in the 30s, and had a large foothold in the food industry. It was bought by a large American manufacturer, York International, in the 80s. And then in the 90s, the three directors of the business bought the name back from York International and re-established it as a contracting business, a smaller contracting business, as it is today, which was in the centre of Warrington. We moved to Runcorn in the early 2000s, and we've been here ever since.
Very good. And thinking back, what motivated you to get involved in the business in the first place? Because what's your role in the business now, Nick?
So I'm managing director and I'm major shareholder.
Really cool. So what was the driving force behind your decision to kind of get involved in the business and take it forward?
I've always wanted to sort of work for myself from an early age, but I wouldn't say I was like specifically sort of the cliche sort of selling sweets in school and that sort of thing. But I always thought that I did want to work for myself. I left school. Well, I got through out of school at sort of 16. They allowed me back to do my GCSEs. But as I was kicked out, I used that time to study, and I did pretty well. So in my exams because of that. Because while everyone else was out, was at school, I was spending time sort of studying, and then overnight I could just go out and see my mates and whatever. But yeah, it actually worked out quite well. But yeah, I left school at 16. Tried to go back to sort of sixth form, and it wasn't for me. And then I went and worked in a butcher's shop for a sort of a brief spell before starting at ICE, where my dad was one of the directors, as an apprentice refrigeration air conditioning engineer. I always wanted to progress into the office, but it made it difficult because I sort of developed into, I just got it. I got refrigeration and air conditioning, and I worked out into probably one of their best engineers. So it was difficult then to get off the tools because I was sort of quite valuable on the tools. But then in 2008, my dad was diagnosed with motor neurone disease. He eventually died in 2011.
I'm sorry.
That sort of forced the transition into the office as service manager, and then ultimately took over as director in 2011. That corresponded with my dad getting ill at the same time as the remaining director. He left the business and retired. But again, it was coming out after the 2008 recession, so the business had sort of been wound down. So what I was left with was a decent opportunity to to sort of put my to fulfill my ambition of sort of working for myself, really.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's really interesting what you're saying about, you know, the education system and sort of getting kicked out of school, but it actually served you well. I mean, thinking about your mindset when you know the business was almost thrust upon you, wasn't it? You were a service engineer, you're working well in the business, but all of a sudden, almost overnight, you have to take control. What what are the qualities that you needed at that point to step up to the mark and make that work for you?
I think it's just determination. You've got to want to do it as well. So yeah, it was, although it was a difficult situation, it was what I wanted to do, and it's what I'd wanted to do for a good few years before that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my chance then, really, to put everything in.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and yeah, I say it's not been easy, particularly at the beginning, because I was the main and the best engineer at the time. I was like the lead commissioning engineer. So then I was sort of doing a bit more of a hybrid role. So sort of doing a couple of days on the tools and then doing things. And then I think we had 3 engineers at the time, and one of them was myself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was not easy, certainly in the early days.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just more so sort of determination and sticking with it, so to speak.
Just being bloody minded about it, I guess, and saying, right, I've got to make this work now.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my chance then to. I knew absolutely nothing about business.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it was just sort of learning that side of things. I knew a lot about refrigeration and air conditioning, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know a great deal about the business and that side of things. So it was I learnt on the job, so to speak, rather than anything else.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Wow, what a journey. And what would you say some of the common misconceptions about running a business? I mean, you probably know best than most, Nick, to be honest, at this point, but how did you go about addressing them?
Well, I've just say I recently did a sort of post and a sort of press release as well. I've just recently won Entrepreneur of the Year last Friday at the Halton Business Awards.
Congratulations. Wow.
So one of the things I did for the press release was you asked me a series of questions, and it was, you know, that if you look at the company today, I think from where we were in 2010, 2011, I think we've increased the turnover by about 500%. We're going to, by the end of this year, we'll have, once the new recruits that that we're in the process of taking on, we'll have over 20 staff. So it's gone from 3 engineers to and me being one of them to having over 20 staff. Is that it's easy, and it's certainly not, certainly them early days. So I was working all day, and we obviously, because we're a refrigeration company, we have to have a call out facility,
Mhm.
which the engineers get paid sort of double time and, you know, call out fees and things for. So if I got a call out in the night, I'd go out and do it myself, and then come back in, then go out to work the next day. And obviously I'd save the money on paying the engineers that do it, because I'd sort of do it myself. So I was doing that in the early days, obviously missing things with my first child, such as parents' evening, sports days, things like that.
Mhm.
And just dealing with the absolute weirdos that that are in the world, because we seem to have, there was a lot of wrong hires that I had to sort of sort out. I mean, I was, as I said in the press release, I think I could actually write a book on just the strange characters that we've had working for us over the years. But no, I've built a good team now, and most of the guys that are with me have been with me a long time now. And we found out that it actually works through our apprenticeship program. You know, building all sorts of training our own guys, taking them on and
Mhm.
molding them to the right standards, because our industry at the minute, with the level of training that's out there and the lack of apprenticeships, there's just no decent engineers out there, and the decent engineers that are out there are looked after by the companies they're working for, so aren't necessarily gonna move. So since we've implemented the apprenticeship program, then we've had a massive success, and produced some decent engineers out of it.
I think this reminds me of I'm a business coach by trade, and it's the business is run by a gentleman called Brad Sugars, who works out of Vegas. And he goes back to the early days, and he says that he went to his dad when he was a kid and said, "I just can't get the right people to come and work for me." And his dad turned around to him and said, "Well, you get who you deserve. You run an average company, you're going to get average people." And I was like, ouch. He says it really hurt him at the time. He was only a kid, but he never ever forgot that. So I think the team that you build, if you build a spectacular team and run a spectacular business, you're going to hold on to them, right?
Yeah. So say, obviously, when I was starting out in the early days, I had a few people that had sort of transitioned from the existing company, and then it was a steep learning curve, trying to get the right people. And to be honest, you have to go through a few weird things to get the right people in place.
You do.
But so we've sort of transitioned into a niche of pharmaceutical refrigeration, and that's our sort of specialist. So, or any business really that needs, or that's business relies on cooling to operate. So in the pharmaceutical industry, they've got strict sort of temperature guidelines. So they're measuring air temperature. And because I did my apprenticeship on a pharmaceutical site at a time when the industry was changing, I sort of then just naturally learned what they require, and then we've managed to implement that in the business, and we've built up sort of some large pharmaceutical clients over the years, and it just seems to have snowballed from there.
How big a part of your 500% increase in turnover is niching down into a particular product and market like that? Do you think that's a big part of it?
Yeah, I'd say over 50%. I would say
Really?
is in the pharmaceutical industry, and that's just not from a couple of clients either. That's I mean, it was in the early days. The turnover was heavily weighted towards a couple of pharmaceutical clients, but it's just grown now. Certainly with the I think as well with niches, that once you've worked for one company, then the competitors say, "Oh, well, that's how they're doing it," then, and it just sort of snowball from that. And I'd say certainly in the last 5 years, our pharmaceutical clients have sort of grown massively in numbers and in turnover, and that's down to our sort of the way we set the business up. Is with a USP of responding quickly, because if you've got £40 million worth of pharmaceutical stock in a cold room that's vastly approaching sort of a deviation or a spoilage set point, then you're not going to put up with, "Oh, we'll get there in a couple of days' time." So it's just sort of grown from there.
And that's a lot of money. That's not like a few fillet steaks going off, is it? That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money now.
So we built a cold room in, I think it was 2005, and we're just actually replacing the kit 20 years later now. But that cold room has held 40. It's probably worth more, but they were the figures I was quoted a few years back. £40 million worth of stock, and that's never gone out of the temperature range, and that's from us designing and putting it in to seeing it through 20 years later. And I was actually an apprentice on the job when it was installed, and it's quite nice now that we're in the process of replacing all that kit. So I've come the full circle with that equipment. I've also been called out to the same equipment at sort of 2 a.m. in the morning many times, but so I sort of gone through the whole cycle with that.
I love that. I love that. And I think there's definitely value there that specializing and niching down in a market or a product can create massive growth when you get a reputation for it. I think
Yeah.
that's some real value for people to take away from today. Listen, you talked about the early days. You talked about missing your first child growing up, which is tragic, Nick. And how do you maintain a work life balance now? You know, how have you got through that and created the habits to stay motivated and focused?
So yes, obviously spending time with my family and my kids. I can do a lot more with my second child than I could with the first. I mean, I didn't miss out or anything like that. I was still there, seeing everything. It wasn't like, but it was just certain things where certainly in the industry that we're in. If you, for instance, if you've got something on that, if you've got a pharmaceutical client that's screaming at you that we need you at this meeting for X, Y, and Z, you can't sort of move things. If you haven't got the team in place at the time, you can't move things around. But yeah, so I just made sure that I'm a lot more present. I work 4 days a week now, as opposed to 5. Just I have the Friday off, and so does my wife. So yeah, spending time with friends and family. I do a lot with the kids. They're both mad into the Thai boxing and the football. So literally something on every night, running them round. And I say I've been doing Thai boxing myself for 20 years. I gave up fighting a couple of years ago, and yeah, that's helped me massively as well as an escape as well to one to sort of relieve sort of frustration and yeah, as a release. But also I found sort of with fighting that my so if you've got to build yourself up and sort of delay gratification, you train for 8 weeks for, a fight that could be sort of 5 minutes to half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Then, it's sort of, it gives you the sort of resilience. And as well from I, I, from a nerves point of view, sort of building yourself up. So if you've got a big meeting or a difficult meeting that you've got to go to and you're getting stressed out the night before, if you've gone in the ring to get sort of punched in the head and sort of knocked out, then, so to speak, going into a business meeting should be nothing. Although I would say I'm probably a bit more nervous going into some business meetings than I have ever been sort of going into to fight. But yeah, that's helped me massively over the last 20 years. Yeah, just as an escape, really.
I think again, the preparation you do for a business meeting, the preparation you do for a fight. I was very privileged to have Frank Bruno talking at an event I held in the town hall last year, and he says quite famously, you win the fight in the training ring. That's where you win the fight, and the preparation you put into a business meeting should be the same preparation that you put in ready to get in that ring and fight. Simple as
Yeah,
that.
definitely. Yeah, I say if you from a business point of view, yeah, with the planning and everything else that goes into it, yeah, definitely.
How fast is this industry moving? Is it fairly stable, or are you seeing sort of changes happen pretty quick? And how do you remain innovative?
All the time, to be honest. So that they're always bringing in legislation regards to the refrigerants that we use.
Mm-hmm.
So I think refrigerants have sort of gone through about 3 or 4 cycles since I've been in the industry. So again, it's just staying involved with the local press and staying ahead of, just like keeping up to speed with the industry, really.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it's not something that sort of stands still. Certainly with the energy efficiency and trying to keep up with the say all the latest legislation, just doing training courses and yeah, just staying up to speed, really.
Okay. I mean, what's next for ICE? What are your future plans and goals for the business? What's the next chapter?
So yeah, I want to try and get the company to a 10 million turnover business in the next, I'd say, 3 to 5 years. I'm going to do that with I don't think I'll achieve it with just organic growth on its own. So we're gonna be implementing an acquisition strategy in the next 12 months, hoping to get our first acquisition. We're looking at certain companies now. We're in talks with people. So I think the first one would probably be local to us. We've got in the process of buying some land next to our head office, so we can expand, so we can bring other companies in and use this as a base in Runcorn for the head office. And then we do a lot of national contracts as well, so then possibly looking at some acquisitions for maybe Birmingham and down south, but that probably come sort of later on the next few years.
Very good.
There's plans in place. So
Love that, Nick.
exciting.
You're going for it. You're absolutely going for it. I love that. Really good. And the next question is the big one. And before I ask you, I just want to say thank you very much for being on. I think there's some 3 or 4 really, really good, valuable pieces of content in there, Nick, that anybody listening should take on board. And just to celebrate the success that you've had, and almost being thrust into that position of managing director, and the success you've had is just admirable. Really, really cool. So this is the last question, really. And as I said, it's the big one, and it's what are your top 3 pieces of advice that you would offer to someone maybe thinking about starting their own business, or in a similar situation to you, being thrust into running a business when they're not prepared, or maybe having challenges in their business at the moment? What would be your top 3?
One would be, or the main one really, would be, where do you want to be? If you start with the sort of the end in mind of where you need to get to. So even if you work out sort of your ideal life and ideal sort of profit margin you need to get there, and just backwards plan it from where, and just put the small steps in place. So if you said that, in 5 years you want to have an income of X amount, well, what turnover do you need to get to that, and then just sort of work it back from there. I mean, I did that with sort of wanting to work 4 days a week. So I was like, right, well, what do I need to do to get to the position? Right, well, I need to have this size team in place. I need to have these departments set up, this structure in place, and just backward plan there. And then, before you know it, you sort of each little step on the way to sort of to get in there. So everything I do, I look at where I want to be, what the end goal is, and then sort of work it back to where I am today, and try and put the steps in place to get a little bit further on to where you want to be.
Love that one. Start with the end in mind, and then backwards plan what you need to do to get there. It's the essence of everything that I do as well, and it's one of the 7 habits of highly effective people. It's actually that wording. I don't know if you've read the book, but start with the end in mind. You haven't read the book?
No. I don't.
That's exactly one of the habits. Start with the end in mind.
Right. Say another thing. What I would sort of suggest is that, and I've only really started doing this probably in the last 5, maybe 6, 7 years, and I certainly didn't do it early on, is read. I'm not the best reader, but I get up every day half an hour early. I have a cup of tea, and I read a few pages of sort of business books, and then I make notes on my phone and like actions that I could implement in my business. And you can normally get a couple of 2 or 3 decent pieces of advice from each book. It's about sort of taking information and seeing what would work in your business, and then implementing it. I also, if I've got a long drive, I put business podcasts on and listen to that. And I'm just using your time really, that rather than spending the extra sort of 15 minutes in bed, if I can get. I work better in the morning anyway, so while I'm fresh and my ideas are sort of coming to me, I just make notes on my phone, and then sort of implement them.
So what would you say your top books are? Top 2 or 3 books?
I would say the Rich Dad Poor Dad was the one
Robert
that
Kiyosaki.
I sort of started with. A really really good book. Gives you sort of the basis for sort of financial sort of planning as well.
Yeah.
And the sort of just steps. And I think as well that a lot of people now, certainly with social media and that, people think that, I don't know, spending X amount and getting a big mortgage and getting a car that finance and trying to keep up with like certain people online, and that money that you're putting into them, to try and maintain or an image of a sort of lifestyle. If you actually invested that into even just like sort of a savings account or stocks and shares, something over time that.
Yeah.
I've read another book. I think it was called Millionaire Teacher. It was about it's a teacher that in America, just on a teacher's wage, and he puts a little bit away each month, each week into just the S&P 100 stock market. And I think he retired quite early as a millionaire just from the.
Just from the compound interest.
He
Wow.
just puts it down into stages to say you don't need to be, a multi-millionaire or even a business owner or anything to actually generate a little bit of wealth through sort
Very
of
good.
another book that's very good is Built to Sell.
Yeah.
It's written in a way as well that it's like a story. It's not written in the way of a sort of normal business book with sort of advice. It's written as a I think it's probably a fictitious story, but it's actually the message they get through it and just the way it's written. I think that's a really good book.
I've read it. I'm trying to remember the author. It's oh gosh, it's slipped my mind. I'll have to look that one up afterwards, but I have read it. It's a good book.
Yeah, very good book. Yeah, and I've just recently read the Nike one, the Shoe Dog one about the owner.
Really,
Yeah, that's quite a good book as well.
I'll put that one on my list then, Nick. Thank you for the recommendation. Thank you. So cool. And you're not getting away with it. There's one more piece of advice I'm looking for. So what do you think the third one would be?
I'd say, is to switch off as well. So
Love it.
go on holidays and try not to be too involved. 100%. You've got to switch off at some point. That would be my third one anyway.
I love that. I think that 3 absolute crackers to end the podcast there. Start with the end in mind and make sure you plan backwards and understand what you need to do to get where you need to get to. Read. It's such a simple thing, but some of the best thought leaders on the planet that have been alive have graciously put their learnings into text for us that cost £7.99.
Yeah.
And all you've got to do is buy them and read them, and we become better. It's amazing.
And even content as well online is just sort of YouTube and things like that. I quite often watch YouTube videos on and to be honest, there's a lot of nonsense as well out there, but you've just got to sort of sift through it and see what works for you, and don't take everything that people say on board. There's a lot of people I sort of follow, and I don't agree with sort of 50% of what they say, but the other stuff you take on board what would work for you, because what might work in a retail business won't necessarily work in a manufacturing business or a refrigeration air conditioning contractor. So it's about sort of, and some people give advice and you can sort of interpret it your own way and put your own twist on it and do it that way as well. So but I'm not the best reader. I say I find it difficult to sort of concentrate, but certainly if I get to I can't do really long books. I prefer sort of short books with bigger text as well, but that I can get through quite quickly. So
absolutely love it, Nick. And I mean, I'm not a great reader either, to be honest. I tend to listen to my books when I'm out with the dog. I'll stick the headphones on and.
What I've started doing is making notes on my phone, because what I found is that I was reading them, but if I wasn't writing the things down, then I'd sort of, you get on with your day, you forget what you what sort of you noted down to sort of plan. So I'd do that. I make notes on my phone and refer back to it.
Beautiful. I love it. Thank you so much for today. That's been absolutely wonderful, Nick. Real pleasure having you on, and we'll need to grab a coffee sometime. I'd love to come and have a look at at what you're doing. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Speak to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.